Penn State Nittany Lions went 4-5 in last season. And the thing that is probably one of the biggest headlines was after Kirk Ciarrocca, one of the hottest commodities in the offensive coordinator market, so to say, after, Tanner Morgan, Rashad Bateman, Tyler Johnson, he had Minnesota's offense cooking. So Penn State makes the poach from the Big Ten West, brings in Kirk Ciarrocca. Now, Kirk Ciarrocca does not have the spring practice, does not have the kind of off season, doesn't have the full fall camp. Installing something on Zoom is just, we've heard from too many coaches and too many players. It just was a little bit of a learning curve that was difficult to overcome. And Danny, like you mentioned, this can be something that we could repeat for every single team, but with we're playing, we're not playing, we're playing, how does the team handle it? I mean, it made things really difficult. And look, the offense didn't look particularly great, but I mean, you lose Journey Brown, who has to retire because of a medical injury. Noah Cain goes down in the very first game of the season. Pat Freiermuth, your star tight end, 4 games in after the Ohio State game, he ends up shutting it down for a season-ending injury. And so, the things weren't working out well. So is James Franklin shrewd? Is he the shrewd and savvy for just pulling the plug on Kirk Ciarrocca after one season and going and getting Mike Yurcich from Texas? Tom Herman brought him in after he did 1 year with Justin, or multiple years maybe, with Ohio State. It was after the first Justin Fields year. Herman hires Yurcich away from the Buckeyes. He got his start under Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State several years back. Some of Mason Rudolph's success attributed to Yurcich. So I kind of feel like James Franklin is, in terms of his decision-making, in terms of his staff hires, is this full spring going to be an opportunity for Mike Yurcich to be a real plus, decision-making advantage for James Franklin? Is this offense going to be strong? Sean Clifford's in his 3rd season with his 3rd offensive coordinator. So I think that the offensive side of the ball is a big piece of what I'm looking at specifically with Yurcich and Sean Clifford, knowing that it's Levis, right?
Yeah.
I think I dropped Levis on an earlier podcast. Will Levis is off to Kentucky. Defensively, we didn't even get to see, Micah Parsons, but there are sort of some built-in questions, but no real lack of talent or no real lack of option. For me, it's going to be a lot of learning new names, refiling my talking points and understanding who the key players and key contributors are. But if I'm a Penn State fan, especially looking at some of the exodus of skill position talent and looking at the change at offensive coordinator, it's not a gamble for James Franklin, but I think it was a decision that could be met either with praise or criticism once we see how things go in 2021.
I don't think that the decision is really a reflection on Kirk Ciarrocca's ability as a coach. I think he's probably a pretty damn good coach. But in listening to our Lions 24/7 podcast with Sean Fitz and Todd Donahue, they really emphasize just in what they were hearing internally, just how much not having any spring was a major struggle for that offense last year. And indeed, some of those early games are scoring in the teens, in the low 20s. They got it going towards the end of the year when the schedule lightened up a bit. But Kirk Ciarrocca was a guy that wanted to pound the football and run the RPO quite a bit. And you lose Noah Cain and you lose Devin Ford almost immediately. You also had a new offensive line coach last year in Phil Trautwein. I just think sometimes you can make a change, and the guy you let go is not necessarily a bad coach. He's just a bad fit for that time. And I think that's probably what this was. I think Penn State is a pretty strong bounce back candidate. I also think they're a team that kind of, I won't use the quit word, but tell me that Maryland game wasn't basically them kind of checked out on the season and they had to decide to reset after they lost that one. I'm kind of in on this team a little bit.
I agree with you. I don't think Kirk Ciarrocca being replaced by Mike Yurcich is a sign that, Ciarrocca's offense wasn't working. I just think that,
but I think it's a gamble for Franklin. If you let a good coach go without giving him a full off season to put in his system and to try and coach up the team, and it doesn't, improve with Yurcich, then you might have missed out on an opportunity to finally see all those reasons that you brought Shiraka in. It feels like for me, I'm not reflecting it on Shiraka. I'm more looking at James Franklin as a head coach and as a decision maker with his staff hires as being like, all right, man, you're just already ditching last season's clothes. Like, you're already trying to move on really, really quickly when you might have had a really good head coach already in place who was trying to get things moving in the right direction.
And Franklin has a rep as a loyal guy. So I don't know, like just me personally, I'm going to assume there are things going on here that I don't know.
Or fit.
Right.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, that's what I wanted to chime in too, because I think we often overlook that aspect of it. There are personalities in coaching rooms, right? And there are big personalities in coaching rooms. I don't know. I know James Franklin, pretty well, having covered him in person, covered some of his games going back to when he was a head coach in waiting at Maryland, when he was angling for a job before he got Vanderbilt. He's a strong personality. I don't know Kirk Shiraka, but I mean, maybe it just wasn't a fit. Maybe they just didn't like each other, and it's like, if you're going to have, because I was going to ask Bud when we were in there saying, hey, why not give him a spring? Like, why not let him try to develop this offense? But if and it was and especially in this year when it threw in a lot of, additional time together probably, and time and Zoom, and you're not getting those personal, kind of off the field moments to bond. Maybe it's probably easier to make a change. I do think it comes with risk, but I think it's probably more, not only was it not a fit scheme wise, probably just wasn't a fit personality wise, which is okay too. And, James Franklin has the right to make that move, and he did.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting spring for Penn State. I agree with a lot of what you guys have said, and also, but I do think that this is a bounce back candidate because it is a talented team. It's just my concerns as far as the roster going forward, regardless of the OC, is, I'm probably a very hated man in the Clifford family. I am not a big fan of Sean Clifford. I don't have a lot of faith in him being a guy that can really take Penn State's offense to the next level. But at the same time, last year they lost a lot of guys at the running back position, but some depth emerged there. And I think going into this season, the running back situation should be fine. It's just, you've got Jahan Dotson at receiver, but who's the other guy? Like, you look at that receiver core, that tight end core, you lose Pat Freiermuth to the NFL. I don't know, besides Dotson, I didn't see anybody truly emerge as a go-to kind of threat. And we've talked about, like we just talked about with Ohio State, they've got might be the top receiving core in the country. And we're seeing receiver become so big as far as the teams that are competing for conference titles and national titles. Look at Penn State's roster right now. I don't know that they have it. I don't know that they have it at quarterback. On the defensive side of the ball, they didn't have Micah Parsons last year, so okay, they don't really have to worry about replacing him because they've already played without him. But you're losing Jason Oweh, you're losing Shaka Toney, you're losing a lot of guys that were important in that front seven. So we need to see some replacements step up there. So I think that Penn State overall has recruited well enough to have guys there, although last year's class kind of slipped a little bit, and I don't know if that's going to have an impact on them in 2021 and their ability to put in depth and to replace guys. So I think this is a bounce back team just because I don't think it was nearly as bad as the results suggested last year. And like you said, Bud, they did improve as the year went on and the schedule lightened up on them a little bit. But I don't know if I'm going into 2021 thinking that Penn State's a legit contender in the East. I think that this is a team that could still finish 8-4 in the regular season. Maybe that makes it the second best team in the East. Who knows? But I don't see Penn State in 2021 as a Big Ten East contender or a Big Ten title contender.
Which is well short of what they've grown accustomed to, right? I mean, they had 3 11-win seasons with James Franklin in the last 5 years, and a 9-4 mixed in the middle, and then last year, which I kind of just write off, as we've talked about. So if they're 8-4, that's a restless fan base, which I would understand. I think they might be better than that, though. I'm kind of on the bounce back plan as well, looking at last year, and I do think I can't believe this is going to come out of my mouth, but I think last year is excusable to say that somebody quit, and it was okay. I get it. Like, you were out there, you lose, so much off the bat. You have this losing streak. I'm okay with that. Like, I understand it. I hate it, but I kind of can see.
Oh yeah. Go tell 2017 Danny Cannell what you just said.
I know, right? Hey, that was before COVID. I didn't know that their season was going to be run amok.
Yeah.
I do have some names. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chip.
Go ahead.
No, I was defensively. The one spot I thought they were not that great last year was at linebacker, which was disappointing because they recruited the position really well. But you had some guys start to emerge late. I really think, Brandon Smith and Jacobs are guys who, like, there's a reason Lance Dixon transferred out, right? And Lance Dixon athletically pretty freaky. He's at West Virginia now. I think they'll be much better at linebacker this year. I think they're absolutely loaded at corner. So, like, if there's one team out there that can maybe cover Ohio State in the Big Ten, it's probably Penn State. We'll have to see if they move some of those corners to safety, because I know they have some question marks, at safety. Receiver-wise, I think you bring up a really good point, though. They've signed some highly rated receivers who have subsequently not worked out and transferred out, right? Justin Shorter, who is now at Florida, and basically all they do is throw him screen passes because the guy hasn't figured out how to catch, really, like, even though he looks like Terrell Owens. John Dunmore hasn't really worked out, right? I believe he's in the portal. So, there is a little bit of they've signed some guys there at receiver, but they haven't really turned them into, productive receivers element going on. And Tom, I think we all stand with you in doubting Sean Clifford. Like, if the Clifford family wants to come after you, they got to come after all of us, man. Because ain't nobody on the Sean Clifford bandwagon here, I don't think.
Hey, I'm all about the home road splits. That's what I'm looking for Clifford. He can get it going in Happy Valley, but you take him out of that comfort zone and he's a turnover machine in the red zone.
Didn't the Big Ten have no fans?
Yeah.
Like, so does Sean Clifford hate bus rides or something, like, or airplanes? Like, what's the deal? Like, it's not a fan. It's not a crowd noise thing.
It's the turf. It's the turf, baby.
Sure.
What if Sean Clifford just really hates his road roommate?
Right.
Well, Will Levis is gone, so now there's no more excuse.
Maybe that's why Will Levis is gone.
Yes. We are cracking the code around Penn State. The quarterbacks hated each other. The coaches didn't like each other. And all of this substantiated rumor mongering starts on the Cover 3 podcast. That's what
Aggregate it.
Aggregate it. Let's go. I mean, the data set is so weird for the Big Ten. Ohio State played 5 conference games. Maryland played 5 conference games. Penn State played 9. Like, to go and try and compare these win-loss records is absolutely stupid. So when we started to pull up the Wikipedias for these coaches, I am 100% willing to sort of scratch, especially in the Big Ten, scratch some of this because of the imbalance.